Welcome back, guys, to Learn Our Comms, Expand Your Thinking, episode 4. So thank you much for everyone who has watched thus far. I am back with John and Paul. No coincidence that those were names of Beatles. Somebody pointed that out on Truth Social. So
you mind?
watched episode 3, you know what I'm talking about. But this episode, we're going to talk about all your base. That is something that was promised. And I promise you it's going to be exciting. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back.
Thanks for having us.
So I wanted to go into what we've done thus far, because I know for some reason episode 3 got way more views than 1 and 2. So let's talk about the significance of what they've just seen.
Well, 1 and 2 are the historical background that is underpinning everything after that. So all of the episodes after that may have lots of interesting stuff in it, but you're not going to fully appreciate how it fits into everything without seeing 1 and 2. So if you haven't seen 1 and 2, you need to go back and watch 1 and 2, then go forward. Number 3 is the Yellow Submarine, which is the big long one that just goes over all the details in that. And then as we go forward, it's going to get much more fun, I think, with the media.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about 1 and 2 is that, again, this is our theory, but when you look at, we look back at all this stuff, and 1 and 2 were naturally, could have been one episode, one really long episode. But like Paul said, that's the thing that underpins or undergirds everything else going forward. We're basing it off of that time frame that Patriots have been active for a very long time.
Yes.
We're trying to cover like 100 years in every episode, I feel like. Yeah. So that's why they're a little long. So there's a ton to cover. So let's talk about all your base are belong to us. Explain to the audience what that even is. Where did this come from?
Okay, so this started with, I noticed in iPet Goat 2 that I could suddenly explain more and more of it. And as the months went by, I was able to explain more and more of iPet Goat. So I started doing this exhaustive analysis of it, which is on Substack. And we listed that before. If you could throw a URL up to that, that'd be great. And then I remembered All Your Base Are Belong to Us, which is this, weird viral video from the 2000s that just everybody was passing it around and going, ha ha ha, this is funny. And I remember it had a bunch of political content in it. And so I went back and I watched it, and just the pattern of the political content seemed way too organized to be an accident. And so I started picking apart little things in it, saying this seems just too organized. And so after I found that, I really didn't dig into it that much, because I noticed that My Chemical Romance had these mind-blowing lyrics in it, and I said, ah! And I started digging through that. And I was talking to John, and I mentioned to him that All Your Base Belong to Us is full of stuff, but I haven't had a chance to dig into it. And John is a squirrel, and he will go after things like that. And I didn't realize that at the time. But in fact, this is pretty much how I learned that. John just went bananas on it and started picking it apart and figured out how the encoding worked. And started digging up all the original images. And what he found is actually mind-bending. It is a very carefully crafted set of messages from the good guys to the bad guys, telling them essentially, we know what you're doing, stop doing it or you're going to die. So,
yeah, when Paul told me, I mean, I remember that from the early 2000s. It came out when, in October or November of 2000?
November 2000.
Okay. So I remember that, and I remember even joking with my friends, like, "Oh, what a great example of English!" Like these guys, this Japanese studio tried to write a dialogue, and they failed horribly, but it's comedy gold. Yeah. But the thing is, it's so much more than comedy gold, because when you start to look at these images, and they flash really quick, like for me to do all these screen captures, it's a 4 minute and 28 second video or something.
4 minutes 21 seconds.
4:21. I can't tell you how long it took me, because every 3 seconds it was a different image, and then trying to find the original images from 20 years ago. We got most of them, and I think there's meaning in the vast majority. There's some that are like, I don't know why they put that in there.
As we've done this series, there's so many things that once you see meaning in something, you can find so much more by diving deeper. And I think that's where the expand your thinking part comes in. Then you can find the comms because you've expanded your thinking.
This is also part of how the secret societies communicate. They they embed hidden meanings and things all over the place, and that's what this whole media thing is all about. There's hidden meanings in just thousands of songs and movies all over the place, and people just don't know how to see it yet. But once you figure out how to dig that meaning out of there, you can see what they're saying, and the messages are actually really, really clear and often very funny.
Well, here's a question someone may have is there meaning in everything? They may come across a song and say, is there meaning in this? Or is this a stretch?
No, a lot of songs are just exactly what they appear to be. You can tell really quickly once you get used to it, whether you're reading something that has hidden meaning. Usually the hidden meaning involves really strange wording or things that are cryptic, lines that don't seem to match anything. Like, I'm reading a love song and then this guy's talking about how he buys like no other. And that doesn't fit. But when you look at it through the lens of, okay, this is a metaphorical love song and these aren't lovers, these are enemies, then all of a sudden that I spy like no other is telling the other guy, look, I'm watching everything you're doing. The way you can tell if there's messaging there is how strong the inferences are. So, for example, if you look at a song like Electric Eye by Judas Priest, even on the surface, you can tell that that's about surveillance. But if you look at it through the lens of there's an operation going on and the good guys are telling the bad guys, look, you have no chance because I can see everything you do. And then in that song, there's about 3 or 4 lines that don't really match just a surface level reading of, oh, surveillance is bad, right? Or I'm going to write a song about surveillance. Those things don't really belong there. But if you read them through the lens of there's an operation going on, they're intimidating their opponent, then those 4 lines suddenly snap into place and say, ha 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 ha, we're intimidating you. No. So that's when you know that the meaning is there, is when the whole thing makes sense.
I will say, since we've started filming this, I've gotten what I feel are confirmations about what you guys are saying. For example, and I don't think we mentioned this in episode 3, but you said something about Adam Schiff. And then the very next day, Adam Schiff gets on CNN and says, we need this trial to be publicly aired to the entire world. Which, why would Adam Schiff ever agree with something Donald Trump wants to do? So you guys are onto something. You're not as crazy as you look.
Crazy? What do you mean?
Time will tell.
I'd like to make one point. I think it's entirely healthy. On True Social, we've had a number of people react and say, well, what do you mean, Barack Obama or Adam Schiff? No way. I can't get my head around that. Okay, that's cool. But then when someone says, I know for a fact that Adam Schiff did this to the Standard Hotel and this because Q put it in there. I was like, really? Misinformation is necessary. Remember that. And 2, if it's not related to Q and you read it somewhere else, well, did you experience it firsthand? No? Well, then how do you know? What do you really know? So you can't just dismiss this shit out of hand because you're like, well, I know for a fact.
And that's on both sides. It's the same argument we would have to people on the left. How do you know? Who told you?
Yep.
There was a post somebody made about they knew that the Bush family was satanic because they had read a book that said that the Bush family was satanic. And my thought is, when was the book written? Did Forpog write it? I mean, you don't know if the book is complete bullshit. It might have been written to make the Bush family look satanic so that they would have cover being good guys acting like bad guys acting like good guys. So.
It's no different than the normies saying, "Oh no, I know Orange Man bad because I read that he likes white supremacy."
Yeah.
They were told that. So don't be a normie.
Exactly. That's exactly the point of all of this. Whether you guys are right, you guys are wrong, it is about looking at everything. How did I receive this information? And let's start connecting the dots to what is actually in front of us that we can verify or that makes sense.
Makes sense. Common sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to go into all your base are belong to us. We will say it's 4 minutes and 21 seconds. So if you guys want to fast forward through it, if you don't want to watch it. But I do recommend watching it. Let's do it.
Someone set up the bug. Media signal. Main screen turn on. It's you.
All right, gentlemen. All your days are belong to us.
You are on the way to destruction. What you say? You have no chance to survive, mate. Your time. Ha ha ha. All your days, all your days are belong to us. All your days, all your days are belong to us. All your days, all your days are belong to us. All your days, all your days are belong to us. All your days, all your days are belong to us. All your days, all your days, all your days are belong to us. All your days, all your days are belong to us. Your day justice, hate on everything. You know what you do, hate on everything. You know what you do, hate on everything. Your day justice, hate on everything. You know what you do, hate on everything. All your days, all your days are belong to us. All your days, all your days are belong to us. All your days, all your days are belong to us. All your days,
Wow.
they have no chance to survive, mate. Your time.
That's an
Sorry.
extended version, I think.
Just an internet meme, right?
Just
That
an internet meme.
Nope.
is not just an internet meme. So what year was this released?
November 2000. So 10 months before 9/11. So and
Yeah.
Remember that, by the way. We're going to come back to that 9/11 connection.
yeah, this is almost all John. I'll pipe in with little comments, but
Yeah, there's a ton to dive into. So I'm going to share some of the pictures of what we saw. And John, I will let you dive into it.
So some of the photos I think are self-explanatory. This being one of them. Antarctica happens to be down there, though. Maybe that's what this is.
could be. Actually, you know what? That's a really good theory because it isn't real obvious. It's very subtle, but Antarctica is right at the bottom of that.
That feels right to me. And as we go through this, maybe other people kind of feel the same way. But
I have a dumb question.
There are no dumb questions.
Isn't Antarctica show on all sides of the planet if you were to spin it this way?
If you're on the southern hemisphere, yeah. Antarctica may be the biggest base.
There you go.
that could very well be it.
Yeah,
You know,
Base of the planet in this picture, so that's all your base Antarctica.
So this one, so obviously it's a Hollywood sign. Could it mean? I think all it means is it has to do with Hollywood. But I think that it might be related to the array tower that's up there. There are several like military installations in and around LA, and I know that it's possible you had signal intercepts and stuff like that. We're not exact. I mean, I think we're in the ballpark on this one. But I did a deep dive. I was like, okay, where did they take this picture from? I think I found the location. So again, is it Hollywood? I was hoping I could find a house where this was, because it looks to me in the original photo that the sign could have been photoshopped in. Obviously, they put all your base on the sign. But remembering that this was in 2000, so the video came out. So it could have been any time in the 90s where this photo was taken. So this is Google Streets. It's from 3301 Durand Avenue. You guys can go there. It's real easy. The curved road, if you look at the actual shot without, and I only sent Kaidi the screenshots where it had the timeline in the bottom, but the timeline's gone. If you go to watch the video, you'll see just a hint of what looks like a curb or a curve with the sign there, the road sign, and then the Hollywood sign. But this is definitely the right angle. And the two trees that are there look like they may have, it's been, what, 22 years, 21 years since that picture was taken. Mm-hmm. So it's possible, but the way that the trees line up with the tower, to me, says this is the spot. All right, so this one, I could not find any provenance for it. The only thing I did see was something, provenance, I mean, don't know when, don't know where it was, but it said hand wash, basically car hand wash. So I don't think it meant anything, but obviously it's kind of a joke because this place is flooded. Now,
it's also interesting that it's a yellow fire hydrant that's partially submerged.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yellow submarine.
Yep.
So this is an interesting one, only because it's an actual road sign, and I found this one. This one's easy to find, right? East 90, 87. It's in Albany, New York, headed southbound. I think the significance of the sign is, well, there's two things. Paul has an interesting speculation on it, but I just think it's, hey, look, you go left, you go right. We got you. We got all the routes covered. Okay. No idea. No effing idea what this is. Where this is.
The only speculation I had is that we've set up shop because it looks like a shop in a town, but that is like, okay, so what?
Were you able to find where this store was? Because I know I looked for a while to try to go back and find it.
No, there's nothing about it that tells me even what region of the country it's in.
Yeah,
it's so generic. There's no vegetation, so I can't figure out where it might be. And by the way, I looked at the 2621 Q drop, no relevance. Like this one, you guys remember Chick-fil-A, eat more chicken. I don't know what this has to do with anything.
It could just be relevance that requires information that we don't know about.
Yeah.
That could be. This is a good one. So this actually there was a real sign. Obviously, that's where they put their words on it. But so the top image, Al Gore said Gore 2000 with Bush on it, and that absolutely happened. And there was an ad agency that did it, and it got headlines all over the country. Like, this is the biggest campaign blunder ever, to have a Gore ad with Bush or Bush with Gore. And a week later, the ad agency put that banner on there. This is today's job opening, proofreader. 1, 2, 3 hire. And so if you go back one slide, I just clipped it out of the thing, but Boone Oakley is the name of the ad agency. They basically got a huge amount of free publicity for totally fucking up an ad. Gore being on here, I think it would just happen to be timely. This picture does not exist. It's a Photoshop of that, obviously. This is interesting. All your base are belong to us, and behind her, the sign is another line from the video game Zero Wing, which is where all your base comes from. You know what you doing. That's actually in that long dialogue. So the next page, I found the originals for it. And this was during the protest during the recounts. These guys were in West Palm Beach.
Is you know what you're doing. You're rigging the elections.
Yeah, this probably was some sort of a nod to the election and what almost would
But
happen.
that's how I would have taken it, because we want a fair vote. We demand a revote. Even if they're not pointing to just the elections, they could be pointing to, we're going to have the people pushing for re-elections because they're going to know what you're doing.
So what the all your base guys did is they put all your base or belong to us in the foreground, but in the background they put you know what you're doing. And the reason the protest was there was because the vote was unfair.
Mm-hmm.
So the all your base guys are telling the bad guys, look, we know what you're doing, and you know what you're doing. You're doing this knowingly.
So this one, again, so it's all your base. Go to the next thing. This is actually a image that came out of Smithsonian Magazine. I found it, and it's about UFOs.
Little green men.
Very interesting that they would put this in here. And by the way, the white hats sending these messages, the guys on the receiving end of these messages, they would know how to decode this shit. They would know exactly what they'd be looking for.
Let me go into this a little bit just because of what I found recently. If you go back thousands of years in history to Egyptians, you have this Osiris character, which is the god of the underworld. Okay, he's basically pure evil. And there's a whole story about Isis and Horus, and Horus gets dismembered and his body parts get spread all over the place, and Isis ends up doing unsavory things with Horus's hoo-ha, and Osiris is the result of that. Okay, so this god-awful story is the origin, or one of the origins, or at least an ancient origin of satanic ritualistic, worship. So basically, I think somebody in the military came up with the notion of little green men, referring to the Satanists. Okay, in other words, we're up against a bunch of little green men. Well, this is around the same time, Truman's era and Ike's era of Area 51 with the UFO things, and there was a known narrative among the bad guys where they literally were planning to take over the world by faking a UFO invasion. Okay, so the good guys are looking at this and they're thinking, well, we're going to get taken over by little green men. So I think there was this little green men narrative, okay, that got turned into the whole UFO thing. But the good guys got control of the UFOs, so the bad guys couldn't fake the alien invasion. And the good guys just went with the narrative and said, oh, UFOs everywhere. Oh, we got Roswell. We're reverse engineering alien technology. And that turned into this whole UFO thing. And so I think that's why this image is in there, is because the good guys can talk about UFOs, and the bad guys know that they're talking about little green men, which is Satanists. So all this baiting and all this D-class stuff we've seen flying around for years about UFOs is actually just the good guys terrifying the living crap out of the Satanists, because they're threatening to release the truth on the Satanism.
Yeah.
They're not actually talking about UFOs.
Which makes sense about that congressional hearing where they talked about aliens.
They're just they're taunting them every single time. It's like, oh, we're going to do it this time. We're going to do it. We're going to release this information. And the bad guys have got to be just crapping themselves.
I love it.
Well, I think another thing to add to this is something I think we discussed in episode 2, but where Eisenhower basically calls Area 51, or basically calls them out and says, I'm going to invade if you guys don't tell me what you got. And whether or not he invaded or not, Paul and I both tend to think that either he or Truman did, and that there was technology that people would call UFO technology. I think everything that's out there is stuff that's man-made.
Yeah.
So I think this might very well just be a straight up taunt, like, hey, do you remember when you guys used to have Area 51?
That's exactly what it is. You're like, you got nothing. We're going to tell people the truth. Yeah, by the way, there are a ton of UFO narratives out there. And it all boils down to the same thing. Oh, I read a book. Somebody said something on the internet. Have you ever met a UFO?
Or an alien?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I saw a thing in the sky. Well, but do you know it wasn't man-made?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And a lot of the UFO stuff only happens in the U.S., right? I don't think I've ever really seen that many stories outside of the U.S. about UFOs.
Yeah, actually, look up I'm going to do it really quick here. UFO sightings worldwide map. You can see maps, and UFOs should be sighted all over the world. They're not, because it's a psyop. They're man-made. It's just bullshit. You're living in the biggest psyop in human history.
All right, this one is good. We looked at this, and the first thing we thought, obviously, was to say something about China. Got the red color, obviously, with fortune cookies. Obviously, they had a Chinese dinner. So I found the original photo of this. Came out of an ad for tequila. Is it Sauza? I can't read that. Hang on.
Sauza, yeah.
All right, so Sauza tequila. And if for those of you that can't read the thing, it says that wasn't chicken. That's what the fortune says. I think that's somehow a nod to China. I haven't revisited that. By the way, I think it is notable that that was in the Playboy 45th anniversary issue. That Playboy being a possible honeypot. I don't
It might
know.
also be related to that eat more chicken thing. This may be related to cannibalism.
The way I read it is, we tricked you, haha, that wasn't chicken.
Yeah.
That's very surface level thinking.
That works.
Well, yeah, I mean, the good guys are feeding the bad guys all sorts of narratives that the bad guys don't want to have happen. So, this could be about information.
The photo from All Your Base, it's that same packaging. And the guy's first name, the guy on the left, it's R-A-Y, like rain, like R-A-Y, and I can't see an apostrophe in there. It's hard to tell, but there's an N afterward, but it's spaced a little further. And then the ampersand, rain and imposter. And that was the image in All Your Base. This one is Dusty and Law and Order. Obviously, Law and Order, that I can understand. I'm not really sure the
Trump
Dusty.
says that all the time.
Right. Don't know what Dusty, how that would necessarily. I mean, that's probably some information we don't know. I don't know, Paul. Did you have any speculation on Dusty?
So basically, you're talking about chemtrails, essentially, right? Dusty Rain.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So when you put them together, you get Dusty Rain and Law and Order Imposter. So what that says to me is essentially putting stuff in the air like chemtrails, and then Law and Order Imposter is essentially saying that the whole legal system is an imposter. It's just corrupt.
So obviously, this is a Windows. There are a total of 6 images out of 58 that pertain to Windows. We speculate that the good guys. Well, Paul, I mean, you could talk about the Unix thing, and just
I mean, I can go back to Multics and the origin of Unix and all that. That isn't really that relevant to this. It's super interesting. We could do a whole episode on that, and I'm sure Greg Phillips would find it interesting. But what I think the Windows messages in this video are telling them is we control Windows. Absolutely. Everybody wants to think that Bill Gates is a bad guy.
Here we go, breaking heads.
Here we go.
What if he's not? And so, I mean, I was in the computer industry. I grew up in the computer industry. I was in Silicon Valley. I saw all that crap. There was all sorts of corrupt stuff going on. But with what we've found out about what's been going on since FDR and Trooper, actually Roosevelt forward, you can't trust that wasn't a show. You can't know that what they were doing in the background wasn't being covered by this veneer of super corrupt behavior in order to force that down the throat of everybody on the planet, because the military was using Windows, which shocked me in the 2000s. I always thought they had their own secure platforms, and it turns out they probably do, except nobody knows about it except Q, right? And so Windows is a piece of garbage. However, it's a piece of garbage that the good guys are all over, and they probably can see whatever anybody using a Windows machine is doing. Same thing for Macintosh, same thing for every flavor of Unix and Linux. So I think that's what it's saying is we can see what you're doing, we can crash your machines, we control everything.
This is a fun one.
This is good. So obviously a streaker. This streaker is at, I think it was the 19 '95 British Open in St. Andrews. So the original picture shows him, shows what it says is the 19th hole on his back. It's what the text says. And then an arrow pointing down to his butthole. It's actually pretty funny.
I can't believe this person actually did that. It's insane.
Yeah. So if
I didn't think of that.
So what's funny is I highlighted that Bush and Prince Andrew happened to be in the audience. Now this was probably several months ago that I found this image. I just thought it was notable that they're there. Doesn't necessarily say anything about them. I just thought it was. I mean, of course they probably would be there, but I think as much as anything, this is just like taunting. So the next image, it's going to be hard for people to read it, but I'll read it from my copy, where they interview him after, and the dude says when he was taken to prison for psychiatric reports, and he said as he walked away from the dock, the sheriff suggested that I seek help. To which I turned around to the judge, to which I replied, "Any chance of getting the number of your psychiatrist, Your Honor?" So I just think that it was just purely like another sort of a, yeah, whatever, guys, we got you. So this is Mandarin Airlines. Its delivery is exactly what it is. Couldn't find the original photo. They are only based out of Taiwan. Obviously, I'm sure they don't fly to China. But they might fly elsewhere. This just looks like a Taiwanese airport, like a sort of Chinese. That's the colors, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but I couldn't find it anywhere.
I think the important part is the airplane in the background that's on his back was a crash. Basically, we think there's something special about that particular airplane crash, but we don't know what it is. So we don't know if it was caused by good guys, caused by bad guys, shot out of the air. We just don't know what was going on, but there's something about this picture that meant something.
Well, there's one for the diggers in the audience.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. I don't think I dug super hard on that because there's so many pictures here.
There's so many.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one is interesting. My initial first take on this was, okay, this kid's writing sentences, so he's obviously done something wrong. But then as you look at it, you see the tree. And I just can't find a better, more clear picture. I don't know that the letters spell anything. But if you go to the next thing, it goes from the book Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. I had that for my kids. They loved the book. And they had that little alphabet palm tree.
Yeah, it's called the alphabet tree. Which when you relate that to alphabet agencies, that actually is kind of potent.
There you go.
True. My initial take, palm tree, I was thinking Gitmo, maybe in some way. But maybe Gitmo wasn't probably that big in 2000. It wasn't until after.
You go back to the original image, because the most two prominent letters there are G and M, which says to me Ghislaine Maxwell in 2000.
Huh.
Also, look at the context of the image. You've got a child, you've got a possible Ghislaine Maxwell connection, and then you've got a big vent on the wall, which is very out of place or odd. So where do you need ventilation?
Oh, yeah. This one, boy, I'll tell you what, if anybody can dig on this. So this is Rivera Live, or Geraldo's show. I don't know who any of those three guys are. Obviously, the guy in the lower right is our friend Katz from Zero Wing. But Geraldo could have been in the lower right-hand corner. I have no idea. I don't know anything about this. I just know that it probably might suggest media. It's going to be a lot of the same thing. Vanna White, Wheel of Fortune. You know, you're taking chances here, guys.
You look at the letters that are missing. You have OU, and then O down below, TO, and then U. Those are the letters that are missing.
So it's 3 O's, 2 U's, and a T.
Yeah.
Out. Only thing I see is the 3 O's, 2 U's, 1 T, 3, 2, 1. Out.
3, 2, 1.
That's how I see it.
Sure.
Yeah. That's pretty coincidental there.
Yeah.
So obviously, this is one we just weren't. I mean, we could conjecture on what it means for Time Magazine, but
well, Time Magazine is so corrupt. Time, Life, Inc., whatever it is, but those guys, you know, they've controlled narratives for a long time. They were the ones that had the rights to the Zapruder film.
Yeah, I think the good guys are telling the bad guys we control the media. I think this is like the Hollywood sign.
So it does the cross on his forehead. It almost looks inverted, but you can't see the bottom of it. I don't know what that necessarily means. The 4 distinct groupings of barcode. I mean, I think of Fourth Estate. And I'm guessing it's a special 25 launching issue. There might be something with that, but I couldn't find any original.
Looks like 26.
Okay. That could be too. I mean, that's what I wrote. I just wasn't sure exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I know 2026 is the anniversary of our nation, right? Is it 2026? Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe that's why.
Huh.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Maybe that's when it's going to be revealed.
God, it's so far away. I can't wait that long.
No.
We'll be fine.
Maybe I say 26 will be the celebration. We will already have known by then.
Yeah,
I'll go with that. That's what I want to go with.
That's the 250th anniversary of the country. It's going to be a huge celebration.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I'm taking 26 as.
Budweiser. I mean, big companies. The yellow binoculars were interesting.
Ooh, yellow again.
That, yeah, I mean, there'd be is you know, hey, we see you with our special Q binoculars. That's just, to me, is a warning.
Yeah, Surgeon General's warning, all your bases belong to us.
This one I could not find the original either. But it's interesting what the 3 things do. The first one looks like it's a guy taking a leak publicly. Next one is a boombox, loud music. And the next one is a fire. So go to the next image, and I threw my guess in there. So you can't put this fire out with your piss. I don't know.
Good notes.
But yeah, how about that? Can't shut down the true news. You can't burn this shit down. I was grasping on this one because it could mean a lot of different things.
This is important.
Yeah, this one's really good. Go, Paul. You're the computer guy.
That's the Windows key to the right of the space bar. Yeah, it isn't any key.
No, but that was a huge meme around that time.
Yeah. On my keyboard that I'm looking at right here, it's a Windows key. I think they're basically saying that we control Windows.
This one, again, I could not find an original, but I just think it's interesting. You got Panasonic, you have Budweiser, you're Times Square in New York City. There's a couple plays advertised or musicals or whatever they are. And the news ticker that's going around that building. I mean, there's a lot of things you could speculate on. You're probably right. I mean, so this guy was hard to find. You could obviously speaking at the UN. So I did some digging and I did some research and I found out who he was. The dude's name is Andres Pastrana Arango. And I think it's the same occasion. If you want to go to the next couple images and get to the one where you've got my notes attached to it. Next, one more. There we go. So everybody can read it, but basically I couldn't find the exact image. He was the president of Colombia. Ooh, isn't that interesting? 98 to 2002. Nothing really swampy, but the guy was definitely deep state. And then I said, there is that little thing called cocaina.
I love your notes, by the way.
Well, they're usually, at the conclusion of something when I can't find enough shit on it. I'm like, okay, I got to write down what my train of thought was.
Well, and also when you trace the origins of the cartels in Colombia, you end up with Nazis in Argentina that started it. And so I think what the good guys are telling the bad guys is who in the cartels can you trust?
I think this is a taunt, basically going, yeah, anal exams. Yeah, you guys, we're everywhere. We're up your ass.
By the way, for anybody who doesn't see this, that used to say final exams, but the I fell over.
Yeah.
It says anal exams.
Anal exams were up your ass. Little man. Somebody I mentioned I could do some impressions. I do a passable walk-in. This one, God, somebody help us. I can't find anything. I cannot find. I looked at number 10. I think 10, there's a Boston affiliate, and I think there was a Houston affiliate. Given that the humidity is 34% and it's 82 degrees, pretty damn sure it's not Houston. So I'm guessing it's Boston. And then I tried to do research on past anchors just to find anybody who had the resemblance to any of these guys. I could not. So
No.
honestly, if somebody could find this, it would scratch an itch that I just would love to be done in.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious part of this is they own the news. It belongs
Yes.
to them, right? And then the
Yes.
other thing, time, temperature, humidity, wind could be another one.
Weather control.
Exactly.
This
We
is
touched
one of
on
my
this
favorites.
one on, I would forget if it was 1 or 2, but maybe 1.
This is one of my favorites.
This is rich.
So I'm looking at this one. I'm like, well, this is clearly an interstate sign. And so I knew it would be out west. I knew it's blurry, but it's obviously those are prairie grasses. Those are some either foothills or small mountains in the background. So I started looking at western states. So you got, Montana, you got the Dakotas, any place that might have these mountains, Wyoming. And it happened maybe on the second exit 192 that I found was this one. So it really wasn't that much driving. I went back and retraced how did I figure this out. But what's interesting is the name of the road. So it is Bad Route Road, north of Fallon, Montana. You guys can all Google Street it. But if you go back, so notice on this one there's no blue and there's no handicap or phone sign on there. Now, it may have had that in 98 or 99, but it looks to me like that's photoshopped in.
No, they photoshopped it in.
So I think that the reason that phone is on there, it's like, call us, guys. You're watching this video. Let us know, or you're going to be hobbled.
Yeah. They're basically saying you're crippled. Call us.
That's the other way I would look at it is there's one shot for you to call us and exit off or take the exit ramp or you're done.
Yep.
So we have a series of the next 4 images are all Windows stuff. So you got Bill Gates. Bill Gates belongs to us. Like, I think that might be what that says.
Yeah. They own Windows.
So blue screen of death.
You know what? We missed something really obvious here. It says an exception has occurred at 0028:A25BP320. That's not a valid address. Oh, no, it could be BF. I'm sorry. If it's a P, it's not valid, but those numbers might resolve to something interesting. I don't know. I think all they're showing you is that they can get in and mess your computer up.
I noted this one, though. It says, you know what you're doing. There it is.
All your base are caused a general protection fault at blah, 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 which
Right.
belongs to us.
Right.
You are on the way to destruction. What you say, you have no chance to survive. Make your time. Ha 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 ha. Take off every zig. You know what you doing. Move, zig.
Right. So they're basically telling zigs are bad guys. So they're telling the bad guys, you screwed up. You have no chance. You know what you're doing. Stop it.
The next image is the space shuttle landing. You can find this picture in a lot of different places. This wasn't a super hard dig. It's Space Shuttle Discovery. It says all your base on it. Going to the next image, it was STS-92, 24th of October, 2000. And then the next slide just basically says, yeah, this is what they did. There wasn't a whole lot of, one more. So this is just kind of where it describes the mission. And there really isn't a whole lot of notable stuff here. Well, maybe I should reread it, but I read through it before. I didn't really see a whole lot. But what I think is interesting is something that Paul and I have talked about since then, that there is a place to land a space shuttle in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It's an island called Ascension Island. And what's the name of the airfield, Paul?
Wide Awake Field.
Oh my God.
Built by the U.S. military in 1942.
1942. Like Yeah.
It's not
Early
a
World War One. Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think the military was making moves way back when, and the space shuttle program may not be what it appeared to be.
This, and which could very well just be the reason that image is in this movie is, I think, possibly just to taunt those guys. So this one, obviously they put it in for Zig, right? Zig, move Zig, all that stuff. But for great justice, yeah, you can roll it. It's your last one, guys. Cigarette while you get shot, kind of a deal.
Yeah, with this one, you have to put the multiple scenes together to see what the message is. So basically, they're saying, we know what you're doing. If you don't stop, you're going to roll your last cigarette and you're going to meet God.
Oh, it makes sense.
Yep.
Because the next one is this one.
Yep. All right. We're going to come back to this one at the end because this is its own little rabbit hole. This was a meme. So, Zig, Paul, I didn't have anything really other than what you could just say was, well, I don't know. You got Ziggy number one. They think they're number one. I don't know.
Well, by saying take off Zig, they're basically saying leave or stop. So they're saying stop for great justice. Or stop or you're going to get great justice.
193 collisions. I don't know if this is like, look, you're going to run into an immovable object. I don't know if anybody knows about hitting a moose. I drove in Canada a couple of times in the fall, and there are signs like this because when you hit a moose in a car, the moose legs are really tall. That moose body will come into the car and kill everybody in there just because it's 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
It could also be a reference to Python. In Monty Python and the Holy Grail, in the credits, there's that whole segment with the moose.
Yeah.
I mean, and people who aren't used to this stuff are going to find this crazy, but I'm convinced, and I think John, you are too, that Monty Python is a product of the good guys.
For sure.
That level of humor is so much in line with these psyops and intelligence guys. They love that kind of humor, and so it wouldn't surprise me if this is like, a moose bit my sister. They're very nasty, and if you don't knock it off, you're going to hit one of them.
You're right. Here's another thing that just occurred to me, given what we've been talking about. What party did Teddy Roosevelt start? The Bull Moose Party. It was like not really a party. But it was,
the Bull Moose Party. There you go. That's it.
I actually think that might be the reason for this.
That's it. Yep. Oh, man.
Because the bad guys would know. They would have known.
That's why Python has the moose jokes in it.
There you go.
It's the Bull Moose Party.
The great big molars of Thor's Hansvold or whatever.
These guys are funny as hell.
That's so great.
Is that where Rocky and Bullwinkle came from?
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Moose and Squirrel. With the
John and Goose.
Natasha.
Boris and Natasha. Boris, get the moose and squirrel.
Anyway.
This one's good.
This is great.
Yeah, I found the original on this. I mean, it surely didn't come from this weird place, but they had it listed. So, I think this is, as much as anything, it's like, look, we're watching you. If you want to confess, just talk to your cam, talk to your computer, and yeah, we might ask you to verify.
They have NSA. They can see everything you're doing. So basically, they're saying, talk to your computer because we'll hear it.
This slide, I spent way too much time digging on. I never found anything super conclusive. And it occurred to me a couple weeks ago after we were going through all the Yellow Submarine stuff that like this couldn't be more obvious. You've got red being the color of truth. You've got green being the Satanists.
Yep.
And truth is kicking Satanists in the nuts. It's got to hurt.
Yeah, basically the military is destroying the Satanists, and that's what they're showing them in the video.
Crossroads. There's a stop sign there, guys. Follow us. This one is probably the juiciest in the whole thing. Paul, I'm going to let you go. I mean, I know the story, but you know this. You were the one who noticed this one before I even did.
Okay, this is basically they're lighting up. Anybody who's seen Fight Club has seen the smiley face that they put in the the building. And this is a building with All Your Base in it. Same sort of thing. All Your Base was released in November of 2000, which is 10 months before 9/11 happened. And anybody who's really dug a lot on 9/11 has seen the E-Team photos. And if you go to the next picture. Yeah, so before 9/11 happened, the Twin Towers lit up with the words E-Team in the windows right where the planes, I won't say the planes crashed, but where there were explosions that blew out the sides of the buildings. Okay.
Yep.
And I can't remember if we definitively proved that these E-Team photos were taken before All Your Base came out, but I'm assuming they did. And I'm assuming that All Your Base is a reference to this. They're basically telling them, we know what you're doing with 9/11. Stop.
Wow.
Otherwise, why is that photo in here?
Yeah.
I didn't throw anything in there related to the background. This would be, if you guys want to dig in this, Google E-Team WTC and do it on Yandex if you're going to do it anywhere. DuckDuckGo will have it. I bet you Google has nothing.
Definitely.
But essentially, there were two different groups. There was a E-Team and a B-Team. And the E-Team, they were Israeli art students. And they actually had the run of the World Trade Center for it was like 4 years. And so they were in there, and there's photographs of them online where they're up inside the World Trade Center. You can see them looking out of these windows, and there are boxes. And the boxes, there's a couple of, like, it's BB-81 or something like that, all these cardboard boxes. And you look up what BB-81 is, and it's a fuse. It's a fuse board. And I don't mean fuse like light the dynamite with the fuse. It's like an electrical connector board. So if you had a lot of things that needed an electrical charge, well, you would use those. Like maybe explosives. It's worth a dig on that. The B team was known as Gelatin, Gelatin, and they changed their name in 2005 they changed the A to an I, so it's Gelatin. If you find their studio page, just be forewarned, these guys are, and so there's a lot of art, a lot of performance art that they do. Some of it is just like, oh God, I wish I wouldn't have seen that.
Have fun.
Yeah, go click on that shit. It's there, but the ultimate thing, the ultimate message is, so these guys were there, and I think the good guys are saying, we know all about this. We know what you're doing. Don't do it. And so now people who are watching this are like, well, I can't believe, why did they let 9/11 happen? They had to catch the bad guys doing it. They had to know who was involved. They had to continue to map these networks. And for all the people that are like, well, yeah, but we've lost too many people already. I don't know, what is too many? Because what would have happened if we took out some of these guys back in the 80s or 90s, but we didn't get the whole cancer? Might be a whole lot worse today. We don't
the problem is we don't know what they've stopped to date. How many worse things did they stop?
Well, and also I'll point this out. In World War II, before the Normandy invasion, we had cracked the Enigma code, and the U.S. military decided to allow the Germans to attack our ships and kill thousands of sailors in order to make sure that the Germans thought that we hadn't cracked the Enigma code. Because the amount of loss that we would have had would probably have been higher than the loss that we had from letting the Germans attack those ships. So war is all about what's the best path to take, and you may have casualties with some paths. We don't know enough information about 9/11 and what the whole military landscape looked like. Maybe we avoided losing 500,000 people. We have no idea. So anybody who's complaining about that and saying this isn't true because the bad guys would never watch that, well, we're in a war.
Yep.
So
I would say one note. World War II is kind of my thing. So Enigma was cracked at Bletchley Park, and what they tried to do once they had it, when they would intercept messages and they would know where these wolf packs were, these German U-boats, or they would know that a bombing run was going to occur on a city at a certain day or time. They would try to find corroborating evidence that they could link so that it was clear that somebody else had leaked it, that they had found because they wanted to stop as much as they could. They didn't just let it happen. They tried to find ways where it could be plausibly shown that, oh, we got this from another source. Obviously, the Germans, so they don't think that, we cracked their Enigma code. But yeah, casualties suck. Part of war.
I'm glad you guys said that. I mean, it is something that is hard for people to understand if they don't know the history and they don't see it from that perspective. So that is something that people also a concept they have to start to grasp.
Yeah, let me give a really good example. If they were to take the teams out that were doing this and stop it, then they wouldn't know what other teams were involved in the operation. So there's other teams that are involved in actually carrying out the operation. It's very possible that they had to surveil those teams to figure out who was involved, because afterwards those teams can still cause damage. So it's a better risk potentially to let them carry it out, record all the chatter with the NSA, analyze it, and now you have all the bad guys that were involved instead of just the people who set it up.
Yeah, and I don't think for a minute that our military commanders that had to make the decision to let this happen, I mean, I'm sure that wasn't like just a black and white, yep, all right, well, we got to let it happen. That's what the cost benefit says. That had to be agonizing.
Yeah.
Patton hated losing his boys.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's where we're at. McDonald's is everywhere, all over the face of the earth. I think that's what 99 billion served.
They stopped saying how many served when it got absurd, though.
Subway. I mean, all I can really think of is having to do with underground stuff, or we're everywhere. I don't know. Submarine, maybe.
No idea.
Magic 8 Ball. I don't know. Upside down pyramid. That's a stretch because this thing was a pyramidal shape.
Well, the other thing is, what are all the possibilities of what it can say?
That's what I was thinking. So it's yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, kind of decide.
Choices.
Most certainly, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, you know what? Do you remember when you'd shake? I had an 8 ball. You'd shake it and you'd ask it a question. You didn't like the answer, so you'd shake it again. You'd get the same answer. You get another one. I mean, I think maybe this is like, look, man, you shake it as many times as you want. All your base are belong to us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This one is, these guys were painting the word school. Misspelled it, which is,
I think they're just saying they're stupid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These people are stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Area 51, I think that's what it harkens to, because a little alien is a little alien, whatever you want to say it. It's in Nevada. I think this is the UFO taunt. This is like, yeah, remember that one time you guys had those?
Yeah, you guys used to have UFOs, and then we took them away from you. And now
you guys used to have Area 51, and oh yeah, that's right. Sorry.
I think the Matrix is teaching people how to think, that they're in basically this alternate reality. You know, the bad guys would know that the reality was really distorted because they no longer control it. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's another taunt. They're saying, look what we did with the Matrix. You're screwed.
County Fire Department in LA. He was a this Robert Senator. I guarantee I butchered that at least twice. But he was a big dude and proponent of the fire departments and stuff like that. But the paramedic programs were really the big thing. So he filmed the pilot for the show Emergency in 1972. Now I remember that show, probably around 75 or 76. In fact, I remember it because one of my friends got one of the helmets, like a emergency helmet, and it had like a red light on the top that had batteries, and you could turn it on and the thing would go around. My parents never bought it for me. I still remember that to this day. Like, that would have been really cool. I bet I could find one now.
Oh, God.
Maybe I will. Maybe I'll wear that in the next show.
So what was the thing about this guy's background, though?
It just had to do with he was huge into the fire and the paramedic stuff, emergency services. So okay. I think emergency is the thing to think. That's where I think it just has to do more with the whole emergency stuff, and this guy's a paramedic.
But it says
Oh.
nobody set us up the bomb.
Yeah, it says somebody set up us the bomb. It's terrible grammar from the Japanese translation of that game.
Yeah.
I think also in the message is media. So
Sure.
with the media and everything going on, this is an emergency. You need to stop. And if you look on the red box to the side, it says Zig on it. Not yeah. In the original one it says Zig. So call us.
Whenever I see Madison Square Garden, I think sports or shows.
Yeah, the good guys control the media at this point.
I think public executions, but that's just me.
That's wishful thinking.
I know it is. I know. That really wasn't what I thought the first time I saw it. It's just hard to find. I couldn't find the original of this one either. This is funny. I think it's the white hats looking down, and that's what this message is. All your base are belong to us. But then when you look at the original, hey, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
They're gonna shit right in their
That's
mouth.
that sense of humor again. I love it.
Right down your throat. Yeah. Here's the thing: televised trial. This guy's trial was everywhere, plastered on TV. Now he got acquitted.
Sounds like
Yeah, well, that was a fixed jury, but I think this just has to do with mugshot and then the last image, one of the last images.
Yeah, we actually did look into the numbers that were on the original, and they don't seem to be that interesting.
No, gravestone, you're dead. All right, we're gonna dig into that. If you guys recall that license or identification card of the Uruguayan guy, email Suarez Barboza. So here's the thing with this guy. I found a Facebook page for him. And before you dismiss it, because the Facebook page, the earliest photo that I can find was posted in 2009. Now, I don't have a Facebook account, so it wouldn't tell me when the page was actually made, but the earliest photo was 2009. So knowing that the video came out in 2000, like, oh, well, a fanboy probably did this, right? Well, maybe, but let's look at the pictures, because this is where you go, well, really? A fanboy posted all this stuff?
And this was the original photo here that was in.
Correct.
Database.
Yes. Yep. And see, his name is Email Suarez Barboza.
Yeah.
All right. Next. So this photo, interestingly enough, was posted August 26th of 2022, last year. So whoever is operating this thing, this account, posted something as recently as not quite a year ago. Yeah, not quite a year ago.
By the way, John,
Yeah.
the name Suarez means swineherd.
This was the earliest photo that we could find. So this account has existed since at least March 19th of 2009. Again, could be a fanboy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. The next photo is the one that was in the all your base.
Yeah.
So looking a little further, we found out that, and I found who this guy was, and I'd seen this particular image, although Mr. Barboza, Mr. Email, has conveniently posted this in his Facebook. There was an article from PC User magazine, issue 93, January 1999, the Argentinian version. And the next page, believe me, I typed the whole stupid thing into DeepL. And it's just sort of a weird little, like, this is the best proof of this small country. Like, Uruguay is the best, and we are not as backward as you guys think. So it's just kind of funny, that thing. So people can pause and read if they want.
Wait, so I'm confused. This here
Yep.
was outside of being posted on the Facebook page. This was in a magazine?
That was in, PC User magazine, January of 1999.
In what context?
Good question. I can't find a digital copy of the magazine, so I don't know where it was from, but I saw several, well, okay, here we go. I didn't see it in the magazine, but there were several references to this because this was kind of a meme that went around, like, email Suarez Barboza. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
It was a meme before all your base used it. So
Wait.
By the way, let me point something out about Barbosa. The meaning of the name Barbosa
yeah,
means a place rich in a type of plant. So you got
There you
swineherd,
go.
and then a place rich in swineherds. Okay, and
Wow.
if you say email is rich in swineherds, that's like the
Spam?
NSA saying, "Hey, look, we have all your email, and you guys are all over it."
Could be spam too. That's made out of swine.
Can I
Yeah.
read this out loud in case people can't read it?
Sure.
This is
You
the
wanna-
best. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, you go.
So this is the translation of what is in that. This is the best proof that in this small country of South America, we have always been many years ahead of technology. As much as the first world countries do not want to recognize it, email is Uruguayan. Of course, in our country, as with so many other things, it was never given the value it had. Barbosa, who were the ones who created it, they lived just around the corner from home. The email has many communication problems. It is a failure. It will never get anywhere. However, many years ago, when Bill Gates was still a nerd being teased in school, email was already with us. Simply by way of historical revocation, the Uruguayan Association for the Vindication of the Lost Orientality publishes this irrefutable proof so that everybody knows that, like Gardel, the comparsita, the Olympic lap, the Negro Rada, and the Chivito, email is also 100% Uruguayan. Wow.
That reads like an Intel guy wrote it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
seriously does. This is their humor. It's absurd. But I mean, what are they saying? It sounds like the good guys are saying, "Listen, you retards, we invented email."
Yeah, we have email. We've had email a lot longer than you guys might think, and we've also got your email.
Yeah, and everything you've ever written, we have.
Email's
Yeah,
with us.
It is uniquely Uruguayan. Oh, who's the doctor who says he invented email in the United States?
Shiva?
Yeah, Shiva. So, this, I mean, unless he did it in Uruguay, but the thing is, DARPA or ARPA, I should say, in 1972, I think was, they had the ARPANET between like 3 or 4 cities in the U.S. through Slick 56 lines, and so. I don't know when email was allegedly invented, but I don't think the story that we're told is actually correct about that. But I mean, that may or may not be related to this, but I think if you look at the name email Suarez Barbosa, that in itself essentially means that there's a bunch of asses in email,
Yeah.
bunch of swineherds. Yeah, no, the good guys have an unbelievably good sense of humor, and they're really smart. So
Yeah.
So this is the first email. He put this is up September 15th, 2014. And I couldn't necessarily find anything around that date to correlate why. But what I think is so funny about like the next 7 pictures is you'll see, look in the visor, you see his picture there. He superimposes himself in every one of these photos, and I think it's so fucking funny. Go back real quick. It just says email Suarez Barbosa, the first Uruguayan on the moon. I just think that's so funny.
oh, these psyops guys are just funny as hell. Anyway, go ahead.
Email at the scene of the crime. Now, and it's Oswald. I mean, this is topical shit.
Yeah, all of these photos are topical.
Yep. This guy is the dude who liked that last photo. This is the only one. There were other people that liked other photos, and I'm like, this is just too deep of a rabbit hole. But I did throw it in there because I was intrigued by number one, the picture, profile banner, and also by this guy's name in the parentheses, Trotsky. If you guys know who Leon Trotsky is, it's a Soviet dude, bad dude.
Look at, I mean, talk about a sense of humor. Look at the pictures that he posts.
You got Steven Seagal eating a carrot.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
These guys are funny.
Oh, it's so hilarious. So yeah, here he is there, and his caption email is snooping in Times Square. I just think it's such a funny word to use. And there's email.
There he is.
Boy, look at that picture. Where have I seen that photo before?
Oh, I was going to actually include another photo to this. We alluded to this on Truth. So I think we talked about it. Maybe we didn't. I don't remember. But here's the thing with this photo, the iconic photo. This was actually the second raising on Mount Suribachi. If I recall, this happened at like 1 p.m. There was a first flag raising at 10:30 a.m. And the way that it worked out is McConnell, I think the guy's name was. I don't mean to do the Marines any sort of disrespect here because those guys were so badass. The guys on the beach, they sent up a squad of Marines basically to put the flag up because they knew it would be a big morale boost. And they're like, look, if you can get up there, just get up there, put the flag up. So these guys get up there, and most of the Japanese are hunkered down in their bunkers because they've been getting shelled. So there isn't a whole lot of resistance. They find some, and this is not the picture of the first flag raising. They find some Japanese water pipe, and they attach the flag, and they put it up. And it's not nearly as iconic of a photo. The guy that took the photo of that, he was a photographer for Leatherneck magazine, so he actually was a Marine. He takes the photograph. It goes up, and guys down on the beach are cheering so loud that the Japanese are like, what happened? They come out, I pop their heads out of the hole, and the Marines end up, basically, they got shot at a bunch, but then they eliminated the resistance.
Wow.
A couple hours later, was he Secretary of Defense? Forrestal.
Yeah, Forrestal.
Forrestal comes just as he hits the beach. It just happened to be that's when the first flag went up. And he said out loud to his aide, he goes, "Oh, I want that flag. I want that flag. I want it for the country or for whatever it is." And the aide relayed it to, I think it was not Mad Dog, Howlin' Mad McConnell. Anyway, the dude, McConnell's around the place. He goes, "No." Now, the way the Wikipedia says, he said, "Well, to hell with that. That belonged to the 2nd Battalion." I'm sure he didn't say that. So he said, "Fuck that. That's our flag. We're the 2nd Battalion Marines. We put it up there." But what they did do is they said, that flag is not big enough. Not big enough because most of the fighting on the island is going to be in the other end in the coming weeks. And they were hoping it'd be days, but it was weeks. We need a bigger flag up there. So they sent the guys that are all in the book and immortalized in the statue, they sent those guys up. There happened to be a professional photographer that went up with them, took this picture, and this became famous, and the other one did not.
Yeah, the film went back to the U.S. at the same time, and I guess the PR department of the military decided to send out the second flag raising. That's why I posted on Truth Social, define false flag. Technically, that's not the flag raising on Iwo Jima.
Interesting.
That's a media version of it.
Yep.
See?
So be careful what you think you know.
So this picture is interesting. This picture is the 1927 Solvay, S-O-L-V-A-Y conference. This is known as the most intelligent picture ever taken because of all the big brains in the photographs, including email. Who happens to be. So this was the 5th Solvay conference on electrons and photons. The world's most notable physics gathered to talk about this newly formulated quantum theory. Albert Einstein was there, Niels Bohr were there, and there was some disagreement among some of these guys. Einstein was disenchanted with Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and he remarked that God does not play dice. And Bohr replied, Einstein stopped telling God what to do. They were competing. It was realism versus instrumentalism. Really, really, really interesting, though, that this is there. So why would you highlight the Solvay conference? Well, I mean, you've got all of these great big brains. They're talking about physics. They're talking about quantum stuff. Isn't that interesting? Wonder how much that had to play into what the good guys were doing.
And that's assuming that this Facebook page.
Yeah. I think if anything, it adds to the idea that the Facebook page, I mean, to have such a collection of photos, hard to imagine this is coincidental.
On the internet, his choice of photos are so incredibly topical to what's going on. It's just an unreal coincidence.
Yeah.
Yep. This email is organizing post-war Europe. This was the first Yalta conference, and I think this was February of 1945. Our friends at in Russia and the UK got together. This is before Roosevelt died. He died like 2 months after this in April of 45. But for anybody that knows what happened, this is where they got together. Victory was certain at this point, so they're trying to figure out how do we partition and divide Europe. What's interesting is these three guys are all politicians. Now, I actually think Roosevelt was good. Part of the Roosevelt clan. Could have been bad. Don't know, but I've seen enough stuff where he might have been a good guy doing some things to, I don't know.
I think he was a good guy.
Yeah. We have Stalin. Stalin was just brutal. And Churchill, I'm not sure where Churchill stands, to be really honest with you. He was always a politician. Disagreed with his generals frequently. And if you remember back in episode 2, I think it was, we were speculating that Eisenhower in World War II, he had the ear of all of these military guys from Russia and from UK, from France, and probably even Germany. And so if there was a plan hatched that would have involved the military, I'm not sure these guys would know about it. Roosevelt maybe, but Stalin probably wouldn't know, and Churchill wouldn't know, because the plan would have been to not do politics as usual. It would have been to do what was right for each of their countries. This is the 1961. This is Kennedy's very first State of the Union address, and I know this because the tie he's wearing, he did, or not 1961. I'm sorry, Yes, he would have been sworn in 61. So this was 1961. It wasn't 62 and it wasn't 63 because he was wearing different ties. We could look up the text of the speech, but either way, I think it's very, very notable that it's Kennedy. So you have Kennedy, you have Oswald, you have the Moon, you have the Yalta Conference where they partitioned Europe, the politicians did. You have the Solvay Conference. You have the end of World War II, the sailor kissing the nurse. If somebody was going to create Emil Suarez Barbosa and be a fanboy, this has nothing. None of these things have anything that you could link to the images in All Your Base unless you knew what All Your Base was all about.
Mm-hmm. And that's the important takeaway. But wait till you get to the last picture.
Okay, so this one is a rabbit hole that I started to scratch. I'm like, it's way deeper than I even want to get to. But this picture, so Paul and I looked at it, and it's some sort of obviously an animated thing where he put his face in there. There's nothing to tell you really what it is. So go to the next picture. This is it. Gendo or Gendo Ikari, I-K-A-R-I, Gendo Ikari. This was a character in a Japanese anime series called Neon Evangelion. Neon Evangelion is a really, really interesting, has an interesting plot line. I think they did like 26 episodes. And I looked through, I watched like one of them, but I started reading about what it was. I started reading about the different episodes. It is so crazy. How would I even describe this? I mean,
it is metaphorically related. Like a huge part of it happens in Antarctica. It has to do with hidden technologies and stuff, and it's just like overlaid on this whole thing, but in a way that like we didn't even bother to try to dig on it exhaustively because it's so huge.
Yeah.
We looked at it.
There's-
What?
Yeah, there are demon creatures that are sleeping in the earth, and that the good guys are going to try. They have to go try to find them and eliminate them. You have secret energy machines in Antarctica. You have, I mean, it so mirrors deep state stuff, and it so mirrors like what is going on right now.
Mhm.
It's crazy. So if somebody wants to dig into, I don't want to dig into this. I'm not an anime fan, so it just doesn't really float my boat. But it is interesting stuff, and I know if somebody were to do an analysis of the plot line, I mean that would be
awesome.
it'd be interesting to see how it ties out in the end. All right, I want to say one thing that we were talking. Paul and I were talking to one in our group. Her true social is at Home Ranger 17. So she kind of brought this thing to our attention, and we just hadn't really made a connection to it. Raven Rock. If you guys look that up, Raven Rock is a huge base underground in Pennsylvania that was set up by Truman. It can house like 5,000 people. It was meant to be like the ultimate fallout shelter, continuity of government stuff.
It's just north of Washington, D.C.
What's that?
It's just north of Washington, D.C.
Yep. What's really interesting is it's about 10 miles from Gettysburg. And Gettysburg is where Eisenhower had his farm that he bought in 1950, and that's where he and Mamie retired to after leaving office. He was close to this whole thing. So what's interesting about Raven Rock, it was known as Site R, the letter R. So this is what our friend said today. She said, what if all your base R belonged to us?
Oh.
Yeah, that's an interesting interpretation.
I thought that was really interesting. So
yeah, that's true. Raven Rock is definitely one of them, especially because, I mean, Eisenhower entertained dignitaries from other countries at his house, at his home in Gettysburg. And so if those were military people and there were a tunnel, they could go in for a meeting and go to the base and do things. He probably also had telephone access from that location. So,
like dedicated wires.
Right, and also you have to understand later on, now that was fairly early, that was 1949 to 51 when Raven Rock was dug, but when you look at Cheyenne Mountain was later in the 50s where they dug out the Cheyenne Mountain base, which is where NORAD is. Right around this time frame, they were digging a lot of underground bunkers because, the Cold War and nuclear bombs and all that stuff. Yeah. But then if you go back in history, you get 1942 and you have Ascension Island with Wide Awake Field is built, and it's the longest runway in the world at the time. Why in the world did they do that?
Yeah.
Okay, in 1942. Actually, I don't know that field was the longest field in 1942. That long field was probably put there in the 50s and probably has to do with NASA. But you've got Cheyenne Mountain, you've got Raven Rock, there's Area 51 that either Truman or Ike took over. I'm convinced that one of those two took it over. We have some evidence that Ike threatened to take them over, but that could also be a cover for Truman having already taken it over just to confuse everybody and give them a different narrative. So we're not really sure what happened. It could have been Truman. But one way or another, it really looks like the good guys took the UFOs away from the bad guys. Mm-hmm. So if you're the good guys and you didn't know whether or not the bad guys could, for example, make their own nuclear weapons or had some, really badass weapons that you didn't know about yet, you might want to dig some bunkers underground. Now, at the end of World War II, the U.S. has the strongest economy and the strongest military by far. They are the world dominant superpower. Okay, even Russia just lost 18 million soldiers and I think 38 or 40 million people total. So they were heavily weakened. If you knew you were going to go up against the cult, which is everywhere, where would you put a base? Where's the most defensible place on the planet?
Antarctica.
Antarctica. Where would you put a hub to get things to and from Antarctica? Ascension Island. Later on, when you get into the 70s and you have things like fiber optic communications, which can move just ridiculous amounts of data, you know, a dish can get you maybe 50 gigabits, but one fiber can get you 50 gigabits. So if you put 1,000 fibers, now all of a sudden you have more than 50 gigabits, 50 terabits. So I'll bet you that on Ascension Island and Hawaii, which are on opposite sides of the planet, right in the middle of the planet, there are fiber lines going down to Antarctica, and I'll bet there's a base that they bored out under Antarctica to run this operation out of. And I'll bet
We wouldn't be able to see that, right?
nope, you can't see any. You can't get close to it. The only hope you have of attacking it is if you're the U.S. military.
Wow.
But the U.S. military is in on this, and I think maybe the Russian military could, but the Russian military is in on this. Chinese, Indians, probably all the major militaries are in on this. So you've got this base on the bottom of the planet that has enough fiber communications going to it where they can see all of the communication of the planet in real time.
Wow. That is incredible to consider.
That now, it's not that much of a stretch though, because
No, but
everybody talks about Operation. Actually, I'm kind of getting into it. I might as well just go, Paul.
yeah.
Okay, so everybody talks about crystal palaces and pyramids and all that, you know, and aliens and all that stuff in Antarctica. But forget all that stuff. Militarily, it makes perfect sense. If you're going to go up against this cult and you know it's going to be a big operation, look at Operation High Jump. If you actually read real stuff about High Jump, it's just a mapping operation. Forrestal went down there and they mapped a bunch of stuff. They screwed up some of the mapping and they had to do Operation Windmill afterwards. Okay, in order to get reference points so that they could make the data they got from High Jump make sense. They were just mapping. They were figuring out where to put it.
Yeah.
That's it. And then, of course, the PSYOP guys come in and say, well, we can't have anybody know what we're doing, so we're going to talk about crystal palaces and aliens and all that. Right? Duh, that's what they do. They confuse people. So it makes perfect sense that while they were building NORAD, for example, in the 50s, you know, High Jump had happened in 46, I believe. And so 10 years later, they're down there. Well, how are they going to drill these? You'd have to just ship tons of diesel down there. No, because in the 40s, they made nuclear airplanes, supposedly. No, they didn't. Nuclear airplanes were always a stupid idea. What they did is they developed small nuclear reactors that are about the size of a tunnel, so you can put the nuclear reactor behind the drilling machine, and then you don't need fuel, and you don't have any fumes in the tunnel you're drilling. Right? So it solves lots of problems because you can let it sit there and drill for 10 years and you just has energy. Okay, so it makes perfect sense why they did the aviation nuclear reactors. They were never designed for aviation. We have some tacit confirmation in Frank Zappa's songs, Nanook Rubs It and St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast, which are back to back on the album. And if you listen to the lyrics or read the lyrics of those two songs put together, he's making fun of the whole Operation High Jump, you know, nuclear reactor thing. He says, you know, where I stole the margarine, and that's about a German base that they went and researched because they were storing whale oil there, and that the whole intention was to make margarine for the army in World War II.
Yeah.
So that's why they're stealing the margarine. So it's
well, and there's documented stuff that those smaller reactors were tested in Greenland. That's where they first did it. And there were reports of cancers. And
that's how Zappa got the name Nanook, because that was called Operation Nanook. It was 230 meters beneath the surface in Greenland, and they supposedly had a leaky reactor, and 800 people got sick and all this stuff. But what they were doing is they were training the staff for the drilling operations down, or for the mapping operation, actually, for High Jump. Because Nanook happened, I think, a year and a half before High Jump. And High Jump was really screwed up. Forrestal had a reputation of always doing safe operations, and High Jump was not safe. They had tons and tons of problems. Like something like 2/3 of the sailors weren't trained in Arctic conditions.
What would that be? Was it a rushed operation?
It was a rushed operation because they said, we need to map Antarctica and get a damn base down there, because right now we're the most powerful military. But if we wait even a few years,
we may not
lose our advantage.
Yeah.
So they were hauling ass secretly. And that's why I say, end of World War II, that's Truman. That's not even Eisenhower.
Yep.
So the military was doing things, but the military couldn't do acts of war, right? They couldn't go attack a foreign entity, but they could do internal things like, oh, we're going to put a base on Antarctica.
Yeah.
They could do that. And so they were doing everything they could to get ready for this thing.
Wow.
Then you have Eisenhower taking over Area 51, takes all the UFOs, and then you get this narrative about high jump getting attacked by UFOs and stuff. I found other sources that were based on all government reports, and it's boring and it's mundane and nothing like that happened. And the reason they lost a whole bunch of aircraft was because the helicopter rotors were freezing up because the staff wasn't trained right. And, reality is usually really boring and mundane.
Well, thank you for reading that for us. So we don't have to.
Yeah. But this all fits in perfectly. If you were going to attack the cult and you didn't know if they had weapons, you would burrow underground as far as you could, and you'd take over Area 51. You'd dig Cheyenne Mountain and put NORAD there.
Mm-hmm.
You would make Raven Rock. All this stuff is in the same rough time frame.
Mm-hmm.
You'd know that you were going to use Ascension Island as a base point because you're so far away from any other continent. Nobody can see a plane flying up and down from Ascension Island to Antarctica because it's like thousands of miles from the nearest land.
So what's to keep the bad guys from going to Antarctica? I mean, we heard John Kerry went there. Okay, you're going to say maybe he's not a bad guy, right? But
they would need to use someone's military to do it.
Mm-hmm. It's a 53-member treaty, I think is what it is. But where 53 nations basically they've all agreed on the standards. You have to be approved. You have to be permitted to go down there. Now, it doesn't count for the cruise ships that maybe approach or they get on the little spitted beach, but yeah, they're not going anywhere inland.
So going back to that theory about John Kerry going there, did he go there? Or was that a lie? Do
No
we know
idea.
he went there, or?
Well, I mean, there's photos of him there. He probably went there. Was it a PR thing? Was he? Is he a bad guy that he was sent down there to go see the actual operation so that he'd flip? Was he a good guy and getting orders? What, hell, I don't know.
Interesting.
Or did he just go to McMurdo on a PR junket?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these, see, this is another thing. It could just be the PSYOPs guys saying, okay, we need to raise controversy about this and make people chatter about bullshit. So we're going to just send Obama and Kerry. Let's say they're all good guys, but they just send them to go do something confusing that gets everybody chasing their tails.
Yeah. Another good point, because it leads to everything else we're talking about, that we just don't know how many things we're chasing our tails on.
Right.
And it may be
a
quite
lot.
I'll tell you what, though, if we're correct and Antarctica has been the base of this thing, and think about it, once they took over Area 51, how do you supply Antarctica? Well, you got UFOs, right? You just pack up a giant, ship-sized UFO and take all the supplies down to Antarctica, and nobody can see you because you just go outside the atmosphere. Right?
Well, once in a while, people see you, and they wonder what that is. It's like,
well, yeah, I mean, you just go up to 120,000 feet straight up, and then you haul ass to Antarctica, and you drop back down. There's almost no radar anywhere near Antarctica. There's almost no satellite coverage except for militaries, but all the militaries are in on it.
Yeah.
So they can keep that place perfectly supplied very cheaply. I bet they've got theaters and bowling alleys and all sorts of shit down there.
I know a lot of people have theorized and questioned what the heck is going on in Antarctica, so we may need to have another episode on it.
Well,
there will be questions.
There is one other category of things that I'll go ahead and bring up. Edit it out if you think it goes over the line. But I think it's possible that the good guys, if the bad guys' intent with the UFOs was to do asteroid mining, then the good guys would have done their standard pattern of emulating the bad guys everywhere they could.
Yeah.
And so on the forward-facing part of this, if they took over Area 51, they would keep luring everybody in to do those bad plans, right? So you have these super powerful people that are saying, yeah, I'm giving you money, let's go mine some asteroids. Well, the good guys would keep developing that project. And this may be why Elon Musk is talking about Mars so much, because they may actually be doing asteroid mining already.
Wow.
And if they're doing that, I guarantee you they're using Antarctica as a jump point with the UFOs.
Mhm.
Now, and this doesn't mean aliens. This means man-made trips, because with what I think I understand about how the UFOs work, and this is not based on anything on the internet. This is based on stuff I've done myself. It's incredibly cheap to go to Mars and incredibly fast. And so they would probably have bases on Mars. Mars would be the distribution center that is in between the Earth and the asteroid belt. And if they have smelting operations, then they have unlimited amounts of free heavy metals, of rare.
Blowing my mind.
Yeah, just unbelievable.
I have so many questions just from that right there.
Yeah, it's very possible that Antarctica is a jump point. Will we ever find out if that's true? I don't know, because I don't know how in the hell you would, like, what happens if gold is just worthless? It's yikes.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? I mean, it's a completely new frontier. Yeah.
To kind of make it make sense, what you're saying is, obviously the technologies that exist, we couldn't even fathom. There are technologies that are possibly out there that we couldn't even consider are real, right? You know this because of the things that you do. You've determined it is possible for us to do things that most people don't think we can. Okay?
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, it depends on whether or not they believe the woo that you see on the internet. There's
that's the thing.
Stuff out there that talks about, like, if you rotate Mercury around at 1,000 times a second, then you get some weird anti-gravity field. I don't buy that for a second.
There's always been debate about spaceships going to the moon or to Mars, or did they just pretend they did that? Is that a psyop? Is it real?
My belief, based on what I know, and I'll only backstop this by saying that I have figured out how to do some things. I believe.
Do you want me to leave that in there? Or do you want me to?
No, I don't care if you leave it in there or not. I think, based on the whole pattern of everything we've discovered, I think the good guys faked the moon landing to cover the UFO technology up, in order to convince the bad guys that they still had UFO technology, even though it was the good guys serving it up as just a basic mapping and sting operation overall.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, there were bad guys who knew the UFO technology were there.
Yeah.
So the good guys had to keep pretending that they were being bad guys and doing this, what you would do with UFO technology.
Yeah.
And if you have the UFO technology, then you have to fake the moon landings to convince everybody it costs billions of dollars to go to the moon.
Yeah.
Right? But there's probably moon bases on the backside of the moon. Okay, so one of the problems with the faked moon landing theory is, if you look at the later moon landings with the moon rovers, and you look at the dust that's thrown up by the wheels, the dust actually falls at about the correct rate that it should at 1/6 gravity.
Yeah.
And so my assertion is, well, then why not just go to the moon and fake the moon landing from there? Because you have UFOs to do it with.
Yeah.
And that way it won't look fake. Because
Yeah.
you're on the moon!
Right. Exactly.
So this kind of, like, really, really weird shit could have been going on. And if you don't think weird shit's going on, look at Joe Biden. And there are tons of things. If you start going and looking for things, like on the space station, or moonwalks or whatever, and you'll see, like, bubbles float by.
Yeah.
On the videos. And there's a video out there that you can find that has a guy wheeling Bush Sr. in a wheelchair through NASA, right? And they wheel him right by a green screen set up where a guy is sitting there acting like he's on the space station. And you can find the original footage that they showed on TV of that guy doing that, what he does as Bush is wheeled by in the background.
Unbelievable.
So you can see that they faked, ISS footage.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're faking stuff. The question is, how much did they fake? So
That's the part we may never know.
right, the narrative that I've stitched, I think, makes sense because I can see the motivations for doing it on all sides.
Yeah.
I can see that if you had UFO, also when you go back to 1908 and Tesla, between 1908 and 1910, he was paid by Astor to do aeronautical propulsion. And that was exactly when a guy at Siemens in Germany invented the magnetron, which is the piece that Tesla needed to do it. I think Astor put the guy at Siemens together with Tesla. Did I say that right? Astor put the guy at Siemens with Tesla. They made it work, and then everything else has just been shoved under the carpet. And then the Germans got it, which are essentially the Prussians. Then it was moved over here. They had it at Area 51. They were working the hell out of it, making it better and better and better. And then either Truman or Ike came in and took it away from them, and that screwed up their whole fake alien invasion narrative. And it goes from there. And then they create NASA, and the good guys created NASA, right? Well, what's NASA? NASA is a propaganda organization to lie to everybody about how expensive it is to go to space, because that's what they need to do to convince the bad guys that they're still being bad guys.
Yeah.
Right. So you have this mess moving forward that is being orchestrated by PSYOP guys in order to catch all of the bad guys. You've got to deceive the bad guys for decades, which means you have to act like the bad guys while you're doing it. And it's a really screwy narrative, but it all makes sense. All the motivations from all sides make sense.
And it's necessary, and something that if they hadn't done it, God help us.
It's almost over.
Well, I think that's the part really that is hardest for most people to get their head around, is to realize that the stuff that we've been told, I mean, does it bear any semblance of reality? I don't know. But I would guess that by its nature, I mean, if they're telling us stuff.
What's funny is almost nobody alive knows what reality is.
I know.
That's the crazy part.
I mean,
that's the part that's gonna break everyone's head. Like their mind is gonna be warped. I can barely speak anymore.
It's a really big thing to remember, though, whether you believe any of the stuff that we're throwing out there, because it's a theory, but whether you believe it or not, you at least have to come to grips with the fact that you don't, anything that is beyond what you have firsthand experienced, and even then, sometimes what you see is maybe not really what happened. If it's just stuff that you've been told, even if you have a trusted source in our alt media, that you don't know if you're being given a narrative by the guys who are running the PSYOP. I mean, maybe if you don't believe there's a PSYOP, okay, cool. I think there's a lot of stuff that really points to that yes, we are in a PSYOP. We've been in a PSYOP for quite some time. Yes. I can understand what I think are the motivations. So anyway, what I'm saying is, think about everything that you think you know. This is where you have to learn to get rid of the emotion. Drop the emotional hold to something.
We've covered a lot in this episode, and I recommend if you skip through all your base, just watch it 4 minutes, but the decode will make sense to you. But these discussions are really, really important, because, again, these are the things that we're trying to create a culture in terms of understanding each other, understanding that we're not all right. No one's right. We may all be wrong. Every single person, whether you're right or left, may be wrong. Be open to the possibility that we could all be wrong, but we all have the same basis of we want good things in the future. So thank you guys again for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Episode 4.
Evening. Kaiti. Thank you. It's been a great evening.
It has been a great evening. And I look forward to all the questions that people are going to have on Truth Social, because it's been fun.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be fun.
Until next time.